Would like to welcome you to this day to a Vitality Chat, where I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Marty Rosen. Today is also our 45th wedding anniversary, and we actually met in chiropractic school. I know a lot of his story, but I really want to share it with others because it's an inspiration not only to me, but to many others. So welcome, Dr. Marty, and thank you for doing this today. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself and share some of your background in chiropractic?
Sure. Hi, Dr. Nancy. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
My background in chiropractic, I think it starts from a really long time ago. Um, when I was a kid and I was growing up in New York, I played a lot of sports and did a lot of activities. And I learned from a long time ago that my body can respond and it can heal. And I remember my parents taking me to pediatricians and doctors when I had injuries, and they really didn't have an answer for me. And I think the culminating factor when I was around 17 years old, I was wrestling with a friend before hockey season was starting, and I dislocated my shoulder. And I was at school at the time, and I went to see the orthopedic there, and he said, told me his thing. He goes, "Oh, if it happens again, you need surgery." And when I came home, my mom said, "I really want you to go see, Dr. London, who was my pediatrician." And I went to see him. I was 17 years old, and I told him what had happened. And he goes, "Well, it looks to me like you have, maybe weak joints and you should give up sports."
Hmm.
And that was like a real aha moment at 17 years old, to kind of pack in your life from a dislocated shoulder from wrestling seemed a little odd. So from that time on, I kind of started to look into alternatives, kind of trust my body. And when I was around 19 years of age, a friend of mine started going to a chiropractor. And I was living in upstate New York at the time, and I was actually working in a factory. I was a welder. I had been between schools. I had dropped out of school for a little while and was kind of looking to find myself. I wanted to be a lawyer and decided that that wasn't right for me. So anyhow, he said, "You got to go see this chiropractor." I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't have anything really wrong. I mean, what do you want to see a chiropractor for?" Anyhow, he was so pumped. He was so excited that actually myself and four other guys that I was living with at the time, we were all sharing a house. We all went to see this chiropractor. His name was Dr. Spina in upstate New York. And he used to take us into this room, and it was just all of us. We'd all sit around the table, and it was just us. And he was just so focused. His wife ran the front desk, kind of similar to what we have in our office. And it was not a box on the wall. It was a pay what you could afford. And you'd go to the front desk and pay his wife whatever you can afford. And there was people in the waiting room coming in and out. We'd go in, and we would go pretty much every week to just get adjusted. And he would just adjust us and talk to us. And kind of we'd make fun of him a little bit because he had this little picture on the wall in his waiting room that had all the drugs on it that told what areas of the brain you affected. And of course, many of my friends at that point in time, being hippies, were like, "Oh, we'd like that one." He would always kid with it, but he was just amazingly focused. And for some reason, and I know at least three of my other friends who went, so that's three out of five of us, are still into chiropractic care and still use
That's
chiropractors.
amazing.
So that's years later. So that
Amazing.
was my first kind of interpersonal relationship and internal shift, understanding, not even really understanding, because he used to talk to us about chiropractic and had these little videos that he used to show us, but to really feel it inside my body, to really understand what the adjustment does and what chiropractic is. So that was kind of my on-road. And I, did a little more exploring in my life. And then one day when I was living in California, and I was working for this gentleman, and I had this really good job, but it just wasn't satisfying. I remember walking back to my bedroom one time, and I heard this little sound in my head that said, "You should go to chiropractic school."
Mhm.
And it was like, wow, that's really interesting. And the next day, my dad called me up and told me that my grandmother had died and had left me $5,000. Now, remember, this was 1976. $5,000 was a lot of money. It paid for, almost a year and a half of chiropractic school. Sorry for all you people who that wouldn't even probably pay for your rent for two
Mhm.
months. But regardless of the fact, it just all came together. And the woman I was living with wanted to move back from California to New York, New Jersey area where she was from. She didn't really like California. And since I didn't have residency in California, I had to get all my prerequisites. Again, I didn't have, I was a political science major, so I had to get all my chemistry and biology and physics and all those courses. And I got into a school in New York that was much cheaper than California. And she said, "If we move back to, New Jersey, I'll work and pay rent while you go to school." So like it all just fell in. It just felt like it. And I went back, took my prerequisites, never turned, never looked back again, and ended up at Sherman College in 1978, where I met this young lady over here as she was in chiropractic from a small town in New Hampshire. So
So,
that's
so
kind of my chiropractic journey.
So reflecting a little bit on that, so you had the experience at 17 that the road that you were on kind of missed the boat, telling
Yep.
a 17-year-old that like they had the weak joints and couldn't do sports when
Right.
I know how much you still do sports. Must have been a turning point for you, but then turning it around to actually understand that inside out philosophy that's so prevalent in chiropractic, that
Mhm.
happened at the same time, or did that happen later, or how did that happen for you?
So I always kind of trusted my body. I always did things like even when that shoulder was dislocated, I knew it would heal. Even when I had injuries, I understood. And I think part of it was my dad was let's just say that if you took the definition of macho and put it in the dictionary, his picture would be next to it. So anytime I got injured, he was like he was the back on the horse philosophy. He's like, just get back on the horse, just get back on the horse. And though that sounds rough, maybe in some cases, but it also is a way to trust your body. It is a way to see it. So he wasn't like get back on the horse, and if you're bleeding out, just keep bleeding out. I mean, we did things that needed to be done, but it gave me an internal ability to trust myself, to kind of know when to stop and when to go forward, and to also know that, not every obstacle that you come in contact is an obstacle that has to stop you. Sometimes you move through it, sometimes you move around it. And I learned to do both of those, either move through some of them, but more often not, move around them, like the doctor who said, oh, your career is over. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense. I trusted it. There are things that people tell you that don't make sense. And I think when you can learn to trust yourself internally, when you are given basically personal responsibility from a young age. I was given personal responsibility to take care of myself. I grew up in New York City and we were out in the streets, from the time literally 5 years old, and we'd be out. So you learn to trust yourself, you learn to take care of yourself. And I think that builds a strength internally that carries through. And it's important in chiropractic because we're always on the outside kind of looking in. And so I think it's really important to have a strong belief system and have the ability to, like I said, move through obstacles that get in your way and trust your internal mechanism.
So your journey is a journey where you learned it inward at first. But for those people listening that might be thinking about chiropractic school and maybe don't have quite the connection to that inner trust, what advice would you give to them about chiropractic and the advantages and disadvantages of joining this profession? And what would inspire them to think about that?
So the first thing is to get into chiropractic care. And that sounds weird, but I remember going to a job fair once and at a high school, and people were like, "Oh, this is really interesting." One of the first questions was, how much money did you make? And
Mhm.
I actually offered kids to get under care, and very few of them, two of them did accept, but very few of them did. So get into chiropractic care. Um, I think it, I think the other thing that's really important is to be able to trust that you will be able to make the right decision, but also be aware of that if you don't, life isn't about making the right decisions. It's about picking yourself up again if you make a wrong decision and moving forward. I hear some people, though, luckily it's not me, but I hear some people have learned more from the mistakes they made than from the right choices they made. So I think people who are looking into chiropractic, I think the first thing you really want to do is understand in my world, I know chiropractic has splinters in it as far as people whose belief system, but I really think that the basic underlying tenets of chiropractic, you should understand them. Understand that health comes from in. It's a salutogenic model. It's about doing things that are healthy. It's not about compartmentalizing the body. It's not a mechanistic approach. Really understand the approach and how we're trying to make a broader picture. I think it's always important in life when you ever do. I actually just heard J.D. Vance talk a little bit a while ago, and he was saying that he was kind of very aggressive. He did a lot of work. He was always moving forward. He was always moving forward, and he realized one day that moving forward for the sake of ambition is what he called it, for the sake of itself. is not a really good thing, but ambition with a higher purpose is a really good thing. So I
Mhm.
think when you get into chiropractic, whatever you're thinking of how to make money, how you can make a really good living. We've made a really good living over the years. So, but it's not about that. It's always that higher purpose. If you're working through life with a higher purpose, then all the little things that get in your way, all the things that stop you, all the things that seem to be hindrances, you can move through them because you're kind of seeing the carrot in front. You're seeing what the goal is. And I think that's really important in chiropractic that, when we went to chiropractic school and our generation was kind of ex-hippies. So our whole goal was changing the world. We were always wanting to change the world. So when I got into chiropractic, that was my focus, changing the consciousness, changing the world. And we have people out there who are trying to do that. Some people doing it really well, some people doing it a little strangely, like RFK Jr. He really wants to change the world, make people healthier. He's just a little weird about it. So I really think that if you're thinking of going to chiropractic school, I highly suggest it's a tough road. It's not an easy road. It's an expensive road. It's a lot of work. And even when you get out there, sometimes it's hard to make sure that you're clear that you have a higher purpose, whatever it is. I'm not telling you what your purpose will be, but make sure that you have a higher purpose, that you're moving forward, that you have something outside of yourself that's bigger than yourself that you're looking at and trying to create. And that will be a strength that will help you move through whatever life throws at you, including chiropractic school and the challenges that occur.
So, and thinking about that and thinking about how long you've been in this game, and could you share something maybe on a personal level of some kind of something that's happened that has made this so fulfilling for you? So it's like we understand you have this goal and this bigger vision, but on a personal level, what has been some of the ways that you have, felt the rewards of this decision?
I will say that for me, the art of chiropractic has been the thing that has moved me forward. And I just love it. And to me, it's almost like a sporting event. I wanted to get really good at doing it, just like if I'm in a sports or I'm competing in something, I want to be as good as I can be. So learning the art of chiropractic and being able to produce that has really moved me forward. And I guess for personal, I mean, I can give you literally, I've been in practice 44 years. I can give you hundreds of stories and hundreds of things that look like miracles. And, in the last probably 10 to 15 years, we've been focusing on pediatrics, and the lives we've changed, not by us seeing it, but by people telling us, has made the difference. But for me, I know that when I'm in the zone and when I'm making adjustments, how it changes me and it changes the person I'm working with. And for me, I mean, I've gone to the office sometimes being deathly sick, like feeling, oh my God, I shouldn't really be here. And with being there for an hour, after an hour, all of a sudden things just shift inside me, internally, externally. My body starts to respond. I start to heal, and I know that that comes out to patients. And I know you've worked the front desk sometimes, and I'll come out and I'll say, oh, I feel a little bit off today. And I go, well, people are loving it. People are saying it's amazing, it's great. And so for me, it's that actual act of making the adjustment that really moves me forward. So I hear the stories, we hear all the good things. And of course, sometimes we hear bad things, people might complain or tell you that something didn't happen or some symptom didn't go away. We have that. But for me, it's the actual act. It motivates me. It moves me. It's something that just has always driven me. And it's being able to try and master that art and to keep getting better and better and better through every year, from when I was in practice 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. My whole goal is to always get better, to always improve, and to be able to deliver the adjustment as best I can. And when I'm doing that to the best of my personal ability, it just moves me. It kind of rocks my world.
And I can attest to that. That's still true after 40, well, I say 45 years of practicing. That has been your goal. Is there any particular technique? I know you're kind of known as a technique person. Of course, the cranial stuff that everyone wants to study with you for. But is there anything in particular, like for a young practitioner or someone listening to this that hasn't found the art, hasn't found a direction? Is there anything you can share about that, like a technique about how you would begin that process?
So
Okay.
here's the deal. There are a lot of, I think I've read somewhere that there are 120 different chiropractic techniques. I don't know how many there are. I don't know how many to list, but they're very different in their nuance in how you perform the art.
Mhm.
I would highly recommend one, understanding the philosophical construct behind that technique. In other words, what is it trying to accomplish? And two, finding a technique that matches your personality. So, for example, a lot of upper cervical practitioners, they're very detail oriented, extremely detail oriented, every minutia, and that's, that's where they look at. For certain other techniques, they may be more easy or more adaptable, maybe to body size, maybe to strength. So for me, particularly why SOT works is because if you haven't noticed from listening to me, I'm pretty left-brained. I need a lot of stimulus. So SOT has so many layers. So there's basic SOT where you can deal with so many issues in your practice. And the thing that I love about SOT is I can deal with 2-year-olds, I could deal with 99-year-olds. I could deal with athletes. So it has adjustment protocols for any particular body type. Like I'm never afraid to adjust anybody. I know that I can find some way into their nervous system. And that's what SOT provided for me. It also is very left brain. It is a high learning curve. But once you get through that learning curve, just like anything else, I always talk about this like a computer program. If you get to the learning curve of the Pro, Adobe Pro, as opposed to, the lower end, what you can do is amazing. So SOT has layers. It has the spinal adjusting. It has extremity if you want. It has soft tissue and it has cranial work. It has all that stuff. For me, it really fits. Other techniques out there that may fit you are things, whatever, maybe it's a Thompson technique, maybe it's a network technique, maybe it's a activator, whatever it is, make sure I think that that technique fits your mode. The other thing that's really true, and I think chiropractors, and I talk about this when I teach all the time, if you have a list of, I'm going to say 10 chiropractors that you would get adjusted by, you should be on that list. And the other thing that should be on the list is the technique you use. If you don't like the technique that you're using, or that's not what you would choose to get adjusted by, then you're being disingenuous. So, three things. Make sure the philosophical construct of the technique match what your goal is. Make sure that the actual technique, the application of the technique matches your personality. And number three, make sure you actually believe in the process that that technique is trying to purport and the protocols that are based on that technique. And if you find those three factors, you'll be happy with that technique. And there's no problem if you get to a place with a patient that maybe you're having difficulty with that you can refer to another chiropractor that has a different aspect, a different technique. So I think that's really important. It's not which technique is better than the other. Anybody who says my technique is the best or yours or that one's no good, I just walk away from those people. It's not the technique, it's a technician. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, a perfect example of this. So I just bought new golf clubs last year. And the first time I went and I actually had them fitted, and I got I got everything made. I got the special shaft and I got the head and everything. I had put them all together. And those of you who play golf know that it's great, it's exciting, not helped my game that much. So the other day I pulled out my old clubs because I had a bad round and I was playing with my old clubs and I came back and my friend picked me up to play golf and I said, I realized something. He goes, what? He goes, um, it's not the clubs, it's the person using them. And you laughed because it took you that long. He said, no, it took me $2,000 to realize that. And so it's the same thing with technique. I've been adjusted by people who do activate, who are really focused. It's been amazing. I've been adjusted by SOT cops who've been amazing. I've been adjusted by network docs. I've been adjusted by upper cervical people. It's the person who's focused. It's the person whose dedication to their art, to master their art, that I would get adjusted by. As opposed to someone who maybe is just a good manipulator or doesn't really understand number one chiropractic and understand the application of their technique and how to access a nervous system.
I certainly have heard these stories a few times, and again, I'm always inspired not only by your stories, I'm also inspired by the art and watching what you can do, and never bored to watch how you unwind and read a nervous system of somebody or whatever, especially in the last few years with the pediatric people that we've been taking care of. Before I wrap this up today, I just want to say, is there something, and for those listening to us, one memorable experience that you can share that has kind of kept you moving, kept you in the game, kept you inspired. You're a very dedicated person and very focused. But is there something when I ask you that question that pops into your mind and go, yeah, that's a moment when I tap into that it carries me through, and maybe some less challenge, maybe some challenging times.
I would say the aha moments in the office, like, after 40, 45 years of practicing and studying, every once in a while, and it still happens to this day, I'll go in there and there'll be something that's challenging with the patient. They're not, and all of a sudden something will hit me, a memory or something I learned, and I'll do it and I'll be able to move forward. And what I find is that what keeps me engaged is I'm still learning. It still blows me away. Like it's 45 years into adjusting people, and I still learn new stuff about accessing nervous system, and I see new challenges. So for me, what keeps me going is those challenges. It is that. It's when that person comes in, when the mom comes in and she's at her wit's end and they haven't slept in 6 months and their kid has been diagnosed with failure to thrive or they're on the spectrum and they get some diagnosis and they're supposed to live with that diagnosis and that shifts. Not only does it shift because the child gets better, but it shifts because the mom understands. They understand that that's not the way they have to live life, and that's just a name to a neurological dysfunction, and it's not a banner that you have to live under. So those kind of shifts, when people actually shift, like when I see them start to bring in their whole family, start to refer other people, we're taking some time off now. We're taking the summer off. And one of the things that really impressed me about our patients is they all said, Doc, it's great. You're taking the summer off. I know you've been practicing a long time. You've never even taken more than 2 weeks off in 45 years. We understand. He goes, but who can we see? We want to continue our adjustments. We don't want to wait 3 months. And I'm like, holy shit. That was a holy shit moment. They got it. They got it all night. So, we have people covering, my daughter is covering some of the patients, other people. But every person in the last 2 weeks when we were leaving, pretty much every single person asked me who they should see because they want to continue their care. And, some of them think I may or may not come back, but they're waiting for that. But even if I don't come back, they want to get care. They don't want to wait 3 months without getting adjusted. So to me, that's an aha moment. That means we did our job. Then they're not asking for somebody only who does it. So they want to know who's good for their nervous system. Because I have maintenance patients, I have babies, I have all kinds of, regular patients. And so they want to know who they can go to match what they need for their nervous system to work. And to me, that was just really, really an uplifting moment in a time where also it's difficult to make a choice like that.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time today on our anniversary to share your story. I continue to be inspired by your story and your dedication to the profession. And I'd like to, let people know that if you want to reach out to Dr. Rosen, you can reach him at Dr. Rosen, no, drmartinrosen.com. And that will give you his information on where he's going to be teaching and what he's doing. And also has his research as well as his books. And yeah, and so anything else you'd like to end with?
No, if you have any question or anything, as Nancy said, Dr. Martin Rosen, drmartinrosen.com or drmartinrosen@gmail is a good way to reach us. What I will say, one more closing remark, is life's a roller coaster ride. That's nothing so outside of the ordinary, but keep your vision focused on the bigger picture. Keep your vision focused on the bigger picture. It will make your life easier, not easy, but easier. And again, any questions, please feel free to contact us. We love to help young chiropractors move forward. We like to help old chiropractors move forward. So thanks again for having me and sharing our anniversary online. And hopefully you'll take me out to dinner later.
Absolutely.
All
All right.
right, take care.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great day. Bye-bye.